Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and what a disappointing night for the Philadelphia Union last night against DC United after they tie to a 0-0 draw. And I think any fans that were expecting the Union to come out and win 6-0, 7-0, I think, even the most biased fans could have admitted that wasn't going to happen. So I don't think there was many fans out there that thought the Union were going to come in here last night and blow out DC United. And even Kai Wagner said after the game, he was asked, is this a different DC United team than the one that you faced last year? And Kai had the perfect answer. He said, yeah, just look at the names on the back of the jerseys. They're completely different from the team that they were last year. And I think that's true. Most of these players on this team weren't here the last two times that the Union faced DC United, the last time during the regular season last year. And they brought in more talented players. They brought in players that had Premier League experience. And we all know that's one of, if not the best league in the world. And that's going to make a world of difference when you have players of that quality in your team. But we have a lot to talk about. And I guess it's kind of surprising that we do in a 0-0 draw. So we'll play 3 clips from Jim Curtin's press conference. Go over 3 stars. Blunder of the week. We do have one. We have a great blunder of the week. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, you guys are in for a surprise. For you guys that follow on Twitter, you guys already know what blunder of the week is because I announced it as soon as I was made aware of this. So I had to check out blunder of the week for myself. And yeah, sure enough, this is 100% blunder of the week. And then, of course, we have some MLS news. And I'll tell you guys right now, when we go over MLS news, the MLSPA announced the player salaries for the beginning of the 2023 season. And since we already have enough news points we're going to talk about in this episode, I figured, we might as well not talk about how much Union players are getting paid for this episode. So we'll do that on Monday's episode when we review the New England Revolution game. So without further ado, let's get straight into the news. So starting off with Atlanta United agreeing to transfer winger Luiz Araújo to Brazilian club Flamengo for $10 million. Now remember, 2 years ago, Atlanta United paid Lille, who play in Ligue 1 in France, $12 million to bring the Brazilian to the club, and didn't really live up to expectations. 11 goals, 12 assists, and 56 appearances for Atlanta United. He'll stay at the club until June 24th. But we've seen this a lot with Atlanta United. They hit on Joseph Martinez. They hit on Miguel Almiron. But have they hit on any other DPs? Thiago Almeida? Yes. But that's it. Ezequiel Barco was not a good signing. You look at Pity Martinez, was not a good signing. You look at Luiz Araújo, wasn't a good DP signing. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. They've not done great business down in Atlanta. And we all know Arthur Blank has an endless amount of money to spend. And so for someone like him to not hit home runs on these DP players isn't going to hurt him as bad as, let's say, the Philadelphia Union. Because the Union are never going to pay $12 million to begin with for a designated player. But you look at the DPs that they bring in, Carranza, Ua, Gazdag, they've all been hits. And I know, right? Carranza wasn't brought in by the club. The Union were never going to pay $6 million is what it took to get Carranza out of Argentina by Inter Miami. And if we're also being honest too, if the Union went to Argentina and told Julian Carranza, hey, we want to bring you to MLS, there's no way Julian Carranza would have came to Philadelphia. But with Inter Miami coming, say, hey, you want to come live in Miami? It's nice year round. Of course, Julian Carranza is going to be open to that. And then when he gets traded to the Union, he doesn't really have much of a say. But I'm just trying to say, If the Union went straight to Argentina, you're probably not getting Julian Kranza because he's too talented. Probably doesn't want to live in Philadelphia. Is probably saying, "Where is Philadelphia?" And the Union would never pay $6 million to bring a player of that quality to the club. But when a player of his quality doesn't work out in Miami, then the Union can send some GAM and afford Julian Granza that way. So we're going to continue to see the Union spending $1, $2 million, close to $3 million in Mikau Ua. So will we see the Union pay $12 million? No, we won't. But the point is, Atlanta United, they don't care how much money they have to spend to bring in these DPs because more times than not, you know, they haven't worked out for them, and they're still throwing crazy amounts of money to bring in designated players. And it looks like Thiago Almada will probably be sold this summer. You would imagine easily a 30 million plus player. He's super young, continues to score. He is the vocal point of the attack for Atlanta United. And of course, Atlanta would love to hold on to him, but if teams start getting into bidding wars and offering you 30 million, 35, 40 million, of course you're going to sell a player of that quality. And for all the Pity Martinez's and Luis Araújo's, you're going to go ahead and continue to sign those players and hope that you can find a Thiago Almada. And it's going to be interesting to see now what Atlanta United do with an open DP spot for the summertime. You'd imagine that they're going to go out and spend on that right away. They'll probably bring in another winger, right? But if Almada gets sold now, they're going to have another DP spot open, right? So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Atlanta United does this summertime. But to get most of the money back for Luis, it's pretty good business, right? For Atlanta United, for a player who's only scored 11 goals, 12 assists, and 56 appearances. So that is news point number one. Number two, I want to bring up is Philadelphia Union 2 have announced today that they have signed defender Carlos Rojas from Venezuelan side Deportivo La Guaira on loan through 2023 with an option to purchase. Carlos is 19 years old. He appeared in 29 matches for La Guaira since the 2019-2020 season. In his first Liga Foot V playoff appearances, Carlos scored 2 goals for the club after the side qualified for the Copa Sudamericana. Carlos made an appearance in the 2022 edition of the tournament. Internationally, Carlos has earned 9 caps for the Venezuelan U20s. 8 of those were starts, making appearances in the 2022 U20 South American Games and the 2023 U20 South American Championship. He's a 6-foot center back. And my friend Jordan Floret's going to come back onto the podcast. If you guys are new to the podcast, Jordan's been up to a lot. So when I first met Jordan, he was writing a book in England about soccer in Venezuela. And then him and his family moved to Venezuela to, continue his passion covering Venezuelan soccer. And I believe now Jordan's working as an agent for some agency. I forget exactly what agency he works for now, but I'm pretty sure he's now an agent. He went down working as a scout for a couple clubs in Venezuela, and now he's a football agent. So he's going to join the podcast here in a couple weeks, and we're going to talk about the latest signing from Venezuela by the Union. There's a total of 6 Venezuelans on the club, and so Jordan's going to give us all the information we need for him and all the other Venezuelans in the club, and we're going to hope to have somebody on with us that's a scout with the Philadelphia Union. So I need to try to get that approved with Erica, and hopefully we can have a pretty good episode for you guys here in a couple weeks talking about how the Union scout in South America, why they keep hitting the Venezuela market pretty heavily. And I have to imagine that's because of Jose Martinez, but we'll try to get you guys some answers here in a couple weeks. Point number 3 I want to bring up, though, on the ninth, the final point is MLS announced today that San Diego will be the 30th MLS franchise The club is set to play its first match in 2025. No team colors, no team name have been announced yet by the ownership group, but MLS makes it official that San Diego will be the 30th franchise. Egyptian businessman Mohammed Mansour is the primary owner of the group. Also joining the ownership group is Cody Martinez of the Saquon tribe, the first ever Native American tribe to have an ownership stake in a professional soccer club in the United States. Former Baltimore Oriole and current San Diego Padres player Manny Machado also joins the ownership group. Tom Varan, the founder of Rights to Dream, also joins the ownership group. And if you guys aren't familiar with Rights to Dream, they set up academies all over the world. And we were actually supposed to, here in Baltimore, have them set up a USL 1, I believe, team down in the city in Port Covington. It never happened. They decided, you know what, Baltimore is not the right fit for us. And so they've taken their USL team and decided to look at other locations. But yeah, Rights to Dream, they do really good work developing young players all over the world. And that's going to be the mindset of this San Diego franchise is using the scouting network from Rights to Dream and just growing local players. And that's how they hope to build this team. It's a 500 million expansion fee. And I would expect, in my opinion, I think MLS is probably going to go to 32 teams because how do you turn down more $500 million expansion fees from teams? And maybe MLS goes past 32. Maybe they go to 34. Maybe they go to 36. I think 100% Las Vegas will get 31 or 32 because we look at all the other professional sports moving to the town. And why wouldn't MLS want to be a part of that? They couldn't find a site right away. And so I think that's why San Diego has now jumped in front of them. The ownership group and everything, I think that's sorted out. They just got to figure out where they want to put a team in Las Vegas. And maybe I should get Kyle Almany on the podcast and explain, why it's difficult to find land in Las Vegas, some of the proposed sites for a potential soccer stadium in Las Vegas, and talk about why soccer in Las Vegas would be good because we see the NFL, we see MLB now wanting to go to Las Vegas. We saw how hot of a start that the Las Vegas Knights, the professional hockey team, got off to. So lots of sports teams are venturing out to Las Vegas, and I would not be surprised if Las Vegas is eventually announced as the 31st team. And then you got to look at, I think, Detroit, which would make a lot of sense, be close to Cincinnati, be close to Chicago, be close to Columbus. Got to look at Phoenix. They're doing phenomenal things in the USL. So do you take that Phoenix Rising franchise and move them to MLS? That's a possibility, I think. Could New Mexico be an option? Possibly. Could Indianapolis? I've heard that as an option. It's possible. Could they go back to Sacramento? Also possible. So I think MLS has a lot of different options, what they can do with where they want to put franchises going forward. But like I said, I think 32 is probably what we're going to hear MLS announce they go to next. But, if franchise fees start going up to $1 billion, they're going to continue to allow teams to join MLS because you don't turn down that kind of money. I mean, MLS would be stupid too. And then I guess, if you're adding that many teams, then you've got to look at a pro relegation possibility. How that works, I'm not sure, but 36 teams, 30 teams is already a lot as is. So we'll see what MLS does in the future. But San Diego, team number 30, set to play in 2025 at Snapdragon Stadium, which is where San Diego State University football team plays. And I don't know, maybe Maybe San Diego eventually gets their own soccer stadium. But that's it for the news portion of the episode. Like I said, we'll talk about the contracts that were announced by the MLSPA next episode because I have a feeling that if we talked about that, we'd probably be 30 minutes into this podcast by now, and I don't want that. I want this episode to be as close to 45 minutes as possible. Now that I mentioned that, we've probably jinxed ourselves and we'll probably be closer to an hour. But let's get straight into the Philadelphia Union versus DC United game, which, like I mentioned, like you guys know, ended 0-0. And that wasn't the greatest display from the Union after winning their last three games, with their last two being on the road. You saw them fight extremely hard for a win against New York Red Bulls, defending for their lives. You saw them come from behind against Colorado Rapids and defending for their lives at the end of that match. And I thought the team would show more heart than they did last night. They didn't create any good chances. When Jack Elliott's free kicks, your best chance, the one that was behind the halfway circle, you know it's going to be a poor game. Or you look, Leon Flach having two shots, you know it's going to be a poor game. You don't want Leon Flach taking that many shots, let alone a shot in the game. Matt Real could have done better with his header, putting it more on frame. The Union just did not look good. That they all didn't show heart, in my opinion. I thought it was a just really, really poor showing from the team overall. And yeah, you can talk about certain individuals that didn't play well, but I don't think it's fair to single out one player, two players. You've got to talk about the whole team. And I have a quote that I'll read for you guys here in a bit from Kai Wagner after the game. Kai Wagner had a lot to say in the locker room. And like I said to people on Twitter today, there were two groups of us that got the chance to talk to Kai Wagner. So there's about two people in the first group. And so I'm not sure exactly what all was said there. And then it was me and 5, 6 others talking to Kai. And there's one quote that really stood out to me that I'll read to you guys here when it's time to bring it up. But the Union, for how poor they were, they just played way too direct, in my opinion. And I know this team's built on playing direct soccer, but when they had no ideas and they're just going to keep putting long balls over the top, that's not a recipe for success when you don't have Mikal Ur on the field. Because Julian Carranza isn't a speedy striker. Joaquin Torres, Daniel Gazdag, they're not going to beat anybody with pace. And the Union played right into DC United's trap with them playing that high line. Tyler Miller playing as a sweeper keeper. The Union had nobody on the field that could play a line breaking pass, and it looked like they just had no idea what to do when they had the ball. They didn't look like they knew how to break down DC United's high line. And so they're like, we'll just dump long balls over the top. And that did not work whatsoever. And Jim Curtin talked after the game about the Union just not creating solid enough chances against DC United's back line.
But overall, in this building, the chances should be more constant. And again, we don't want to settle for shots. Too many shots from outside the 18. And again, some of it's the opponent. They played a good game as well. They came in with three strong center backs and let us have the ball a little bit at the beginning, especially. And we weren't able to really find a way to break them down. If you rewind to the first half, and I'm sure we'll see it on the tape, you basically had our back four, Leon Flach, and then just a straight line against theirs. And they were playing a very dangerous high line, but the quality of our pass in behind them always either ran to Miller or wasn't good enough, and now they won balls, and the spaces between each back line now is 60, 70 yards, and you guys have heard me say it time and time again. When we just go end to end, it's not what we're good at. So that led to not good, solid chance creation and good attempts at goal, I thought.
Yeah, a lot to break down there from Jim Curtin's quote. 11 out of 16 shots from outside the box from the Union. And I think it's funny too because I've been taking notes for how many times the Union shoot the ball outside of the 18-yard box. And they're a team that typically in the past would not do that. They're a team that hasn't scored a lot from outside the box, and you score two against Colorado. Okay, now you're feeling pretty confident. You score outside the box with Kai Wagner against Minnesota United. You start to feel confident, and now this team's taking more shots outside of the box than they are inside the box, and that's like you heard Jim Curtin say, it's not a recipe for success, and I think that's the case for many teams in MLS and the world. Most goals, everybody knows, are scored inside the 18-yard box, inside that little 6-yard box. And um, the Union are deciding, we've scored a couple goals from outside the box. Let's continue to shoot from outside the box. And then I think the other part of that is because it's just teams defending really well. They're crowding that 18-yard box, putting 5, 6 players inside that box, making it really difficult for the Union to get shots off inside there, making it difficult for the Union to pass inside that box. And so the Union are forced, okay, well, we're getting down here. We're getting close to the opposition's goal. We don't want to waste possession. So we're going to go ahead and shoot this and hope the shot goes on target, hope that it gets saved, goes out for a corner kick. And I know the Union haven't scored many goals off of set pieces this season. Jim Curtin mentioned during the week that, yeah, even though they're not scoring goals off of set pieces, they're winning the first ball on set pieces. The last thing that's missing is the finishing, the ball going in the back of the net. And so yeah, set pieces haven't been there this season, but with Frank like, you got to trust his set piece routine with how well this team the last couple years has defended on set pieces and also scoring on set pieces. It hasn't happened this year, but you know the team's got to figure, okay, well, if we're going to shoot outside the box, let's hope that if the ball doesn't go in the back of the net, let's hope that it leads for a corner kick and let's see what we can do there. Jim Curtin admitted it that this team isn't built to go end to end. He said it so many times. How many times have you guys heard me play a quote similar to that on this podcast? And he repeats the same thing all the time. I know. And you guys are probably getting tired of hearing it, but it's true. The Union, they're a team that's built to quickly transition, win that ball back as soon as they lose it, win it back within 5 seconds, and now let's go on the counterattack while they have numbers pushed forward. And DC United decided, hey, look, we're going to let the Union hold the ball. And how many times have I said that on this podcast? How many times have people said that on social media? The way to beat the Union is you let them have the ball. You come into Subaru Park, you say, all right, Union, you're a good team. We respect your front three, but we're going to let you have the ball. We're going to sit back. We're going to put 9 men behind the ball, and we're going to defend for our lives. And when we win the ball, now we're going to try to transition and hit you on the counterattack. So you guys want to try to beat us? You hold on to the ball. You show us what you can do. And we've seen this in the past, right? But the difference was the Union could go to the bench and pull on Elsinho, and Elsinho could take on 2 to 3 players. They don't have a player on this roster that can do that. Jack McGlynn isn't with this team. He's the player that can play those line breaking passes. He's the player the last couple seasons that has come off the bench when teams are sitting deeper, when the Union need a push for a goal to try to tie the game up, to try to win the game. But Jack McGlynn's not here. And now that bench gets shorter and shorter. And you look, they do not have a difference maker on the bench. Joaquin Torres is not that player. He is not that player. And I know a lot of people, myself included, we were all hype after that first game against Columbus, watching him do that beautiful spin, setting up Julian Carranza. And I was listening to MLS Slander, Billy Myers' podcast with Mike Thomas, and oh god, I forget the other guy's name. Billy's gonna kill me. Oh well, sorry. Um, but to be fair, they haven't released an episode in a very long time, so I think I'm excused for not knowing their third co-host's name. But the point is, they had Montreal people on the podcast, and they told them that don't believe the Joaquin Torres hype. This is what he typically does. When he first gets to a club, he'll have super bright moments, and then he'll fizzle out extremely fast. And that's true. That's exactly what we've seen of Joaquin Torres. Beautiful spin move, plays Julian Kranza, and now he's fizzled out. Does not fit into this team. He's a winger. He's not a 10. He's not a second striker. And I would argue, even if you're playing with wingers, he's not a great winger either. And I get it, right? I get why the Union went out and got Joaquin Torres. It's because they had money to spend. They had game to spend. Ernst Tanner knew, hey, look, why was LAFC successful? Because of their bench, because they went out and got MLS pieces. We have game to spend because of some of these homegrown sales that we've had the last couple seasons. Let's go ahead and spend that money. Montreal were willing to get rid of Joaquin Torres. Now we can see why. Absolutely did not fit into Hernan Losada's formation up in Montreal once he took over. And so they were willing to let him go. And now we can see here in Philadelphia, he doesn't fit. And I'm pretty confident in saying that after 13 games in the league, I think we played 12 games, something like that. And his limited minutes in the US Open Cup and CONCACAF Champions League, he just doesn't fit. And I appreciate the Union trying to bring in an offensive player, a player that has MLS experience, but he's not it. And Ernst Tanner has to really consider in the summertime bringing in another striker. And I know it's crazy to say that, where, again, guys, I feel like I'm just repeating myself. The Union go out, get Julian Kranza, Mikael Uhre, Chris Donovan, Jose Riasco, all in the same window. How do you convince Jay Sugarman to go out and get, yet again, another striker? Jose Riasco looks to be struggling with Union 2. You spend over $1 million for him. How do you convince Jay Sugarman to spend more money? I'm not going to call Jose Riasco a flop, but you need a player that can make a difference right now, and that's not Jose Riasco. Nelson Pierre's been loaned out all season to Union 2, but even then, I mean, a 17, 18-year-old, he's not going to be the difference maker for this team. So what do you do? Chris Donovan's not that player. You've got to go out this summertime and get another striker. And I know this team wanted Corey Burke back, but they weren't willing to give him the kind of money that DC United and New York Red Bulls were offering. And both those clubs offered him the starting spot. The Union couldn't offer that here. His role was going to be what it's been the last couple of seasons, coming off for the last 20, 25 minutes, getting a spot start here and there. And they wanted to do it on less money. And I don't blame Corey for turning down the Union's offer, especially when teams were offering him the chance to start. And that's exactly what's been happening in New York for him. He's starting games. And so they've got to go out. They've got to go out and get a striker, and preferably a striker that has speed. Because the only speedster on this team, other than Bizo, is Mikael Uhre. And that's why it hurts not having Sergio Santos. The guy couldn't stay healthy, right? And sometimes he would miss some really easy chances, but he was the fastest player on the team. And you saw when he was healthy what that speed did. He would open up so much space for Daniel Gazdag, Julian Kranza, or Corey Burke, or Kasper Schibelka to run into that space. And now you don't have a player that can stretch the field like that. And I think that hurts. And maybe they go out and get a speedster. Hopefully they do. And then you need a backup number 10. You need a backup for Daniel Gazdag. It's not Jeremy Raffanello. It's not Joaquin Torres. It's not Quinn Sullivan. They do not have a backup 10. And I don't know what's going to happen with this team. I'm not sitting here panicking, even though it might seem like it, but I don't think this team's going to go very far in the playoffs. I think they are a playoff team, but to expect them to go to the MLS Cup final again with the current team that they have, it's not going to happen. They need to invest in the summertime and invest in the striker position and invest in the backup number 10 position. And I'm always tempted to say they need another eight, a more offensively minded eight, but you have so many midfielders already on this roster. I'm not sure how you could really go out there and sign yet again another number eight. Now, if you move some pieces, then yeah, for sure, then that could be an option. But I think we all know that this team needs to be active this summer. And also, when the Union are active in the summertime, we've seen it the last two summer windows, they don't play those guys. We've heard Jim Curtin and Ernst Tenner both say, all right, well, we need them to adjust to the league, to the team, and they don't play. And so, I don't know. We're sitting here saying they need to bring in these type of players, but they might not even play those type of players if they bring them in. But going back to Joaquin Torres, because I have a clip lined up that I want to bring up about Joaquin. Jim Curtin admitted that they decided to change formations last minute because Jose said that he wouldn't be able to start this game, so they went with the 4-3-2-1 Christmas tree, and it wasn't good. Daniel Gaza got taken out of this game completely by DC United, and that's a credit to them. That's a credit to Wayne Rooney for having his team be disciplined. They won the midfield battle. They all knew their roles, and their role was to force Daniel Gosling to play square and backward. They didn't allow him to get near the 18-yard box and combine on those 1-2 passes that he loves. He only had 27 touches compared to Matt Real's 25, and Matt Real only played 57 minutes while Daniel Gosling played the whole game. DC United were constantly putting somebody on Daniel Gosling, making it impossible for him to receive a pass in a good area. Playing that high line really forced the Union center backs to hold on to the ball longer than they probably would have wanted to. And it showed them, okay, well, all we can do is play long balls because you're playing this high line. We can't play this ball in the middle. If we do, it's going to get turned over right away. I know Kai Wagner was complaining he wanted the team to play faster. And I do agree, but the team wasn't on the same page last night. There was way too many turnovers from the Union where they were dispossessed 6-3. Daniel Gaza got dispossessed 2 times, most out of any Union player. The Union lost possession more than United, 24-18, with Carranza losing the ball 4 times, whether that be a heavy touch, whether that be getting the ball stolen off of him. He lost possession. And Joaquin Torres, he was not impactful at all in this game. And you needed more from him. This was a big opportunity for him to gain the trust of his teammates and of this fan base, and he did the complete opposite of that. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say about playing with 2 10s.
Yeah, look, I wanted it to go better with the 2 10s. You know, the thinking there was that we could catch. They play with 3 center backs now. If you get 2 10s that are on the night, and the combinations start to happen, it's the hardest thing for a center back because they don't know whether to release. Do they stay? Do they drop? And that becomes difficult. When we start trying blind flicks and lose one-touch passes, that goes out the window, and now they're just on top of us. So we weren't sharp enough with the ball, and that's not just the 2 10s. That's everybody being clean on the ball. Look, we made a few changes personnel-wise because we had to, right? Jack McGlynn goes away, who was in great form. We miss him, so now we're juggling a little bit. We wanted to have Jose come in and play the 6. In the last second, we change. We thought Joaquin could give us a little something at the 10, and we were just a little bit as a team off on the night, and it was frustrating, you know. But at the same time, it's a point, it's a clean sheet, and then we know we have to be better, especially against the New England team that's going to be fresh coming in on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of you guys are tired of hearing Jim Curtin saying, well, it's a point at home, it's a clean sheet at home, because you guys expect the Union to beat DC United. But it's a completely different team than the one that the Union beat up on last year, and I think that's pretty obvious watching DC United last night. And Jim's right. They lost the ball in dangerous areas. They tried to dribble in their own half. Why would you do that? I mean, I've complained about Jose Martinez doing it. Now you have 3 or 4 guys trying to do it last night. Joaquin Torres doing it. And now As soon as you try to dribble out of pressure, now you're forcing Andre Blake to come up with a huge save. He saved the Union last night because the Union were just giving the ball away idiotically in their own half last night. They were trying to be too fancy with the ball. They were trying to do those fancy flicks, like Jim Curtin said, play first time balls, and it was not working out. And I know I said earlier, I don't like singling out just individual players. And that's what I'm about to do here. But you got nothing from Matt Real and Joaquin Torres when you play this formation. And I get it, right? You wanted to play Jose Martinez. You're practicing in the 4-4-2 diamond leading up to this game. And then the very last day before the game, Jose says he can't start this game. And so you decide, well, we don't want to play a 4-4-2 with Leon Flach at the base of the diamond. So we'll go to the 4-3-2-1 Christmas tree and hope that the 210s can cause chaos for the center backs for DC United. Doesn't happen at all. They don't get Daniel Gazdag on the ball enough. And like I said, that's a credit to DC United. And what does that say about Andres Perea not getting into this starting 11 over a out of position Matt Real? I think that speaks extremely high on the situation with Andres. And we hear people say all the time that they want him playing. Last night would have been a perfect opportunity. Matt Real starts over him. A left back starting in a shuttler role that Perea should have been playing. I don't know what to say. You know, we've asked Jim Curtin multiple times about Andres Perea, and he will not give us an honest answer. And maybe he is giving us an honest answer, but it's not the answer that some people are looking for. And I'm not sure how we're supposed to get an answer out of Jim Curtin that he just doesn't want to give. He doesn't throw players under the bus, and so I don't expect him to throw Andres under the bus. But you know, it's telling. It's telling what Jim thinks about Andres when you don't start him last night when you should have started him. And I know, right? You would have started him on the left side of the midfield and not the right because you're playing Badori on the right. And typically Andres has come on the right side of the field. But still a midfield role. Jim Curtin said it on this podcast back in January that he can play anywhere in the midfield. So it doesn't matter if it's on the right or on the left. He can play that role. And the fact of the matter is, he's not ahead of Matt Real in the depth chart in the midfield. And I think that's all we need to know about the Andres Perea move is that just like Joaquin Torres, maybe the team's realizing that he just doesn't fit in to the 4-4-2 diamond or fit into the club in general. Maybe we see why Orlando City were willing to move on from him. But here's the quote I wanted to read from Kai Wagner to you guys. This was after the game about the mentality of the team. Kai Wagner was asked about, and he said, "It's hard to say because everybody was expecting more today. Everybody was happy to finally be back in the stadium to just play at home after a long road stretch. My mentality will always be higher. I think everyone saw it tonight. I was fighting up till the last minute, block shots, try to create something, and stuff like this. But I didn't feel it was from everybody today." And right away, you guys might be thinking, okay, that's a pretty me mentality from Kai, which Kai Wagner is all about Kai Wagner for people that have not had the chance of speaking to him. Which, you know, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have a player that's about me that's confident in their abilities. Because I do think Kai Wagner is a team player, but he's also about Kai Wagner as well. And we know as much with all these interviews he's given the last couple of years talking about his desire to go back to Europe to test himself in a top 5 league. And maybe that should be what we ask Kai next is what's going on with your contract extension? You can sign with any team on a free transfer this summertime and leave in the wintertime on a free. So maybe that should be the next question. Kai's always so open, and that's what I appreciate about him. And he talks about not everybody having the same mentality last night, and I do agree with Kai. I thought that watching the game, I said that to you guys at the beginning of the podcast, is that this team didn't show any heart. Some players did. Kai was one of them, but there were a few players that showed no heart last night, and I think that's pretty telling. Has Jim Curtin lost the locker room? I don't think so. But maybe if this team doesn't start getting results at home, maybe we're gonna start hearing more creep out of the locker room, and then we're here. People are asking questions. Okay, well, what's going on in the locker room? Is it because Jim Curtin hasn't signed a contract extension? Are these players focused on playing someplace else? I'm sure all these questions will be asked on social media, and then it's going to be our job to get the answers for you guys. But yeah, just wasn't great in the 4-3-2-1 Christmas tree. Walking tours wasn't great. And the last clip I want to play for you guys, an outstanding question here from Kevin Kincaid, who, by the way, first time back in Subaru Park in the press box for a very long time. And of course, right, Kevin comes back and he said after the game, he's like, yeah, this is 2013 Union all over again. Maybe I should stay away. So some of you guys are probably like, yes, please, Kevin, stay away. That was dreadful to watch last night. But Kevin asked Jim, you know, are players less inclined to play through Leon Flach than they are with Jose Martinez?
Everybody has a different skill set, and when you see, Leon on the road, as an example, against Red Bull or Colorado, where we say you guys make the game, and he sits as the six, he's perfect. He had two amazing games for us, but now you could see the strategy of DC at the beginning was they pressed us, but they didn't high press us. They let us kind of have it in the back and said, break us down, which is difficult when now it drops quickly into a back five. You have experienced guys that have played at a high level in the center of midfield that can break plays up. So it was hard for us. And we got baited into basically, like I said, a line of five guys standing across, and we didn't have levels to play through. We never had a level where now Joaquin dropped off or Danny dropped deeper, and then Leon was a level. We were just kind of a back four and then, five straight across. And that's a tough way to break teams down. If you get one play right over the top, different story, and we score, and now they have to open up and change, different. But we didn't do that tonight, where if you rewind to last season, that's kind of how it went, where we score, now they have to open up, and it changes things.
Yeah, and that's the difference, right? Where the Union, when they're starting to sub out their starters, they don't have a lead. And there's nobody on that bench, like I was just talking about, to come off and make a difference. And it's an issue. It's why this team needs to go out in the summertime and invest and trust those players that they're bringing in to make a difference, because this team's not going to go far in the playoffs if they do not go out and bring in another striker and a backup for Daniel Gazdag. And then you got to hope, too, that they don't sell anybody in the summertime, because if they do sell people in the summertime, now you're looking at more than a backup striker and a backup for Gazdag. Now you're looking at other positions. And, Ernst Tenner is a guy who's always thinking ahead, doing his work, always thinking of any possibility. So I'm sure he has people on his short list if they were to get offers that were too good to turn down for players on their team. He would have players that he would want to bring in to replace those players. But if you start talking about changing 2-3 positions in the summertime, halfway through the season, not going to go far in the playoffs, not going to go far at all. But it's a fair point by Kevin Kincaid. And it's something that I've noticed too, especially against New York Red Bulls and Colorado, where Leon Flach's wide open and players have completely overlooked him. They won't pass him the ball. They're not confident with Leon. He doesn't have the passing ability of Jose Martinez. And if we know that as fans, as media members, don't you think that these players know it too? And so I think playing Leon Flach as the lone six comes at a huge cost, because when the Union are successful, they have Jose Martinez playing as that playmaker there at the number six, spraying those long balls, taking players on 1v1, feeling good under pressure when players try to take the ball off of his foot. But you don't get that sense with Leon Flach. And like I said, it's a fair question by Kevin Kincaid, even though Jim Curtin kind of danced around the question and said, it's different playing styles, which it is. But then again, it goes back to the whole depth issue. Okay, Leon Flach can't play as a lone six. Then why are we playing Leon Flach as a lone six? A lot of questions, and it sucks. We can have all these questions, and we might not get the answer that we want, and can't force somebody to give you an answer that you're looking for. And we can try to ask the question a million different ways, and people don't want to be open. If people don't want to say what you want them to say, can't force them to say it. But that's all my thoughts on the Philadelphia Union DC United game. Quickly, let's go to 3 stars, which it's going to be all defensive players. I've said it before, right? When you don't have goals scored, it's going to be all defenders. Number 1, Kai Wagner, 11 passes into the final third. The only player that seemed like he wanted to play forward on the night. 1 out of 1 tackles won, 2 blocks, 3 interceptions, 6 ball recoveries, 4 out of 5 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 headers won. And he's been playing phenomenal the last couple weeks here defensively. We all know what Kai can do offensively, but he's taken his defensive game to a whole nother level, I think, the last couple weeks. And it's really starting to show where we talked about Jacob Glesnes taking his game to another level. And now it's Kai Wagner taking his defensive game to another level. And he's been phenomenal. It's been big. He's had to be big defensively when Jack McGlynn's been the one playing in front of him, which he said he enjoys playing with Jack McGlynn now. He offers a lot to the team, where last year he did not like playing with Jack McGlynn. But the more that those two played together, the better chemistry they get between each other. Number 2, Andre Blake, 3 big saves. I mean, that really big save on Teddy KDP, where you had Kai Wagner make a block and the ball falls straight to KDP. How Andre Blake saves that, how Teddy KDP doesn't score that, I'm not quite sure, but it's a huge save from Andre Blake. And you saw Kai Wagner kiss Andre Blake on the forehead because Kai knew. He knew that he messed up. And he's thanking Andre Blake for coming up with a huge save. And we saw a lot too in this game. The Union's center backs, whether it be Jack Elliott, whether it be Jack McGlesnes, they're stabbing at the ball a lot, not winning the ball. Leon Flach stabbed 2 or 3 times in the first half, didn't come away with the ball, and Andre Blake had to bail them all out. And that's why Andre Blake's one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, in CONCACAF. Number 3, though, Jack Elliott, 1 block, 2 headed clearances, 2 interceptions, 6 ball recoveries, and 3 out of 5 aerials won. I thought him and Jacob Glesnes, for the most part, did a good job handling Christian Benteke. Somebody that's super physical, somebody that's great in the air. We saw Benteke have a header come off the crossbar in the 69th minute. And the Union were fortunate that didn't go in. But for the most part, I thought Jack Elliott was solid on the night. Same with Jacob Glesnes. So you could switch those 2 at number 3, but you can't say anybody was great offensively for the Union. So let's go to Blender of the Week. And we finally have a Blender of the Week. And if you guys, like I said, follow the podcast page on Twitter at Free Kick Pod, you guys know what Blender of the Week is. But if you guys don't know what Blender of the Week is, let me tell you. And I'm so sorry, Mike. I'm so sorry. I told you this was going to happen, but this is a fantastic Blender of the Week. And I know, dude. I know you understand. And you messed up and you said, I assumed and I shouldn't have assumed. But you still assumed, dude. And because of that, I've got to give you Blunder of the Week. And so Mike hosts a Philadelphia Union podcast as well called Across the Pitch. And he gave Kyle and Jillian and me and my sister, Shelby, a shout out on his podcast for us traveling out to Colorado for the game. And I appreciate the shout out. It's a fantastic episode, except for your blunder, Mike. So Mike gets to the part and he says, Todd was actually out there with his girlfriend. I think her name is Shelby. Mike, my guy. Come on, dude. At least you got my sister's name right. But that is not my girlfriend. And, don't feel bad, Mike, because Shelby and I get this all the time. We either get, oh, you guys are twins. We're definitely not twins. I'm 27. She's, 24. I'm sure she doesn't mind me saying that. And we're not twins. We look similar, but we're definitely not twins. So it's either people say, oh, you guys are twins, or you guys are boyfriend and girlfriend. So you're not the first person, Mike, to say that. And you definitely won't be the last, I'm sure. But my guy, he was feeling so confident. He's like, yeah, Todd was actually out there with his girlfriend. At least you got my sister's name right. Right? But, dude, come on. I thought we were closer than that, Mike. I thought we were pretty tight. But my guy, Mike, come on. You have met Shelby and I, and you had to have thought, right, that they look kind of similar, right? But you say, that's my girlfriend, and you were sounding confident, my guy, on your podcast, and got to give you blunt of the week. I hate to do this to you, but, man, can't believe you'd do that, Mike. I cannot believe you would do that. And it's all fun, though, right? And you're right. You said sorry, and I think you felt a little bit bad, but it's all fun, right? You didn't mean no harm. You were assuming, and you assumed incorrectly. But for all of you people that do not know, my sister, her name is Shelby. So if you guys see any pictures of us on social media, that is my sister, Shelby. That is not my girlfriend. And I'm sure people will say it in the future as well. But hopefully that's cleared up for all of you guys that are listening to this podcast. But told you guys, we're probably going to go over 45 minutes, and we've done exactly that. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast now, end it like we always do. If you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website for a couple more weeks now before it goes away for who knows how long, thefreekick.net. I think Kyle's going to have an article or two up there before I close down the site. What else? The YouTube page, The Free Kick or Free Kick Pod, you can find it by. I'll, as always, leave the link in the show description, show notes. And share, subscribe to the YouTube page. It really helps more people find the videos. I appreciate all the people that are commenting on the different videos we're posting on there. Love interacting with you guys. And if you guys are enjoying the podcast, make sure you leave a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts. Let me know if you guys want a guest on the podcast who I should talk to, whether it be a coach, player, fan, whoever. If you guys have recommendations who you want on the podcast, be sure to let me know. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.